All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, Rich Prado, owner of Play in School. Today we're heading up to the Chicagoland vicinity. We're talking with Pete Flores. You guys are actually Countryside, Illinois, so you can fill in the blanks with where you are exactly. But Pete Flores is running Rake City. Pete, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I'm pumped to be around.
You got it. I tell you what, I always do a bad job of pointing people to where they can find you. So I'm gonna try and right my wrongs here. Catch up with Pete over at the Rake City over on Twitter and or rakecity.org. Go over to their website there, rakecity.org. And man, I'm a sucker for some good branding. I complimented you the other day. There's just something really cool. Whoever did this font with the white and the yellow, it's just really slick. So that's hats off to whoever did that for you guys. I'm a big fan of that. I think the little things like that I think are nice touch, man.
Thank you.
So what I want to do is give our listeners a chance to get to know you. I know just enough to be dangerous. I know you're a West Coast guy. You're a sunshine guy. Stuck in the Midwest. But why don't I just pass over the mic to you and let you introduce yourself to the listeners at home. And work us from how you ended up from the West Coast to where you are now and everything in between.
Sure. Obviously from LA, like you said. 2005, I started coaching at I was at Southgate High School. I went back to where I went to high school. I was the assistant coach there for one season. Went down to we took that team to the semifinals. I was blessed with a pretty good team of, for lesser words, just a bunch of hood rat kids that wanted to win.
Wait, we can't fly by that. Is this where exactly in LA was that? And is that a rougher part of town? Is that sort of the implication?
Yeah, it was, growing up was pretty eventful, day to day. A big population of Mexicans and blacks, low income area. We didn't have a field at our school on campus, so we played at a park. Mm-hmm. The park was filled with crack pipes and broken beer bottles on the ground. So most days before practice we'd walk around the field just picking up garbage.
Unbelievable.
After the kids, go ahead.
This reminds me of there's a great documentary. It used to be on Netflix called Harvard Park. You ever see that?
I haven't.
So it's about when I think it was Darryl Strawberry and
yeah, he's from the area.
Yeah, who was the
Crenshaw High School. You got Ozzie Smith, Tony Gwynn.
Who was the outfielder for the Reds in the early mid '80s? That was
Eric Davis.
Yeah, was he from that? I think he was in there. Anyway, so it was Strawberry and a bunch of other big leaguers who would roll.
Eddie Murray.
I don't remember. It's been 10 years since I saw the documentary, but they would essentially in the off season, because like the pro game in the 80s was very different. The pro athlete in the 80s was very different than what it was today. But these guys, their off season work instead of maybe a guy today might head to the Dominican to play, these guys just went home to LA and would show up in like Compton or Crenshaw or wherever, literally in like one gang on one side of the park, another gang on the other side of the park, and these pro baseball players on the park taking BP and playing.
Yeah,
it was go find that documentary, and you will probably it'll probably mean so much more to you because you know that that area.
I love stories like that.
Eric Davis was the other guy that was like, and a young, I believe it was a really young Royce Clayton. Is he from that area?
He might be. He might be, but if you go through and you look at like Locke High School, which is in South Central, Crenshaw High School, there's some really good big leaguers that came out of them, and a whole bunch of guys that you'll never hear about because they got caught up in the wrong lifestyle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those old stories and you know, like, oh well, off the sport, but Venus and Serena Williams, you know, kind of what they went through with their dad, and kind of the toughness of the streets, that, you know, spatial awareness, knowing what's going on around you. There's something to all that those guys kind of, you know, live by. For sure.
Yeah, it was, by the way, I just pulled it up on IMDb. Harvard Park definitely featured. It was Strawberry and Davis. Go check that thing out. And I grew up a Strawberry fan. That's why that's why that thing attracted me. But he's been almost a tale of two different people. His
right.
post baseball life is almost 180 degrees from the, you know, the Big Apple, you know, big lifestyle, big drugs, you know, big salaries, all these things. So anyway, we hijacked your you know, your introduction and bio. So I want to steer us back to your story. You had a team of guys out of a tough neighborhood, and essentially had a really good couple years there or whatever. So let me step back out of this and let you tell the story.
Yeah, I had I took that team for 9 months. Prior to that, they practiced for probably 3 weeks before their opening day. So I asked the head coach at the time. I actually went, like, it was hard to get a hold of him. I actually went into campus and sat in its classroom waiting to ask him if I could work for him.
That's one way to get a job, man.
Yeah, I just knew that I wanted to get into coaching at some type of level, and I figured this would be a good step to get inside this door. So we went through 9 months of training before we started our season. So it was, you know, the off-season conditioning, trying to buy into a new culture and a new system, learning that it's not okay to lose. And guys just, by about month 5, guys finally bought into it, and bless them, those souls. That was 2005, and there's a good handful of those kids that still keep in touch, pretty much on a monthly basis, just a quick text. Now, these are grown men now.
Yeah, that's cool.
They got kids. And that part's really special to me. So after 1 year of high school, I went to East LA Junior College, worked for James Hines for 3 years. And that was probably one of the best guys I've ever worked for. Super intense, wanted to win. East LA, we had, you know, pretty much all Latin kids. There was a few blonde hair and blue eyes kids that came in that kind of, you know, bought into Hines' system and what he was teaching and wanted to win and wanted something different. Was there for 3 years. We went to state playoffs twice. After that, I ended up going to University of Utah as a volunteer and spent 6 years in Salt Lake City. And we touched on this a little bit about how beautiful that area is.
I could spend the next hour talking about how beautiful Salt Lake and Park City and just Utah in general is. Man, I love it out there. You were a lucky person to get to spend a good chunk of time out there.
It's a special place. It's a special university. They take their athletics extremely serious. Now I was there in the transition from the Mountain West to the Pac-12. So we took our lumps for a couple years. Gary Henderson is now the legendary Gary Henderson is now the head guy over there, and I think they're like 9-2 right now. So there's a lot of pride in that university and a lot of pride in their athletics, and Kyle Whittingham kind of got that started with football.
Is there a natural rivalry with BYU right down the street?
It's a big rivalry. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I didn't understand how big that rivalry was until we went into BYU. I think we started off on a midweek game with them. They're 45 minutes down the road.
Yep.
But it is a big rivalry. Those kids, a lot of those kids grow up together, play against each other. They choose different schools. Their beliefs are different. That rivalry goes pretty deep, not just on an athletic level, but on a personal level. That rivalry goes back a long, long time.
And the stadium at BYU, the baseball stadium at BYU is second to none. It's stunning. I've tweeted about it multiple times. The backdrop and view is, in my opinion, I don't think there's a better one in college baseball. So they get the view, but what you guys lacked in view, you made up with in total facility. You guys were playing in a pro park, which is amazing.
Yeah, we played at the Salt Lake Bees, the AAA for the Angels. Mark Amacone, the general manager up there, that he was I believe he was a BYU grad, but has a lot of connections in the University of Utah. But we had a practice facility on campus, and all across the street was our athletic department of food, locker rooms, the practice football field. The Alex Smith kind of donated and put all that money in once we got in the Pac-12. But our backdrop was pretty nice. Also, not taking anything away from BYU. BYU kind of sits right in the mountains. The AAA stadium that we played at was kind of downtown, so the mountains were in the backdrop, but a little bit further. Where BYU, you literally have the mountains right behind the outfield fence.
It's stunning. You're on a flat piece of ground, and then on the other side of the fence, it's just like straight up. It's
intimidating. It's intimidating. It's very humbling to be in that and be like on this beautiful baseball field in April or May, and there's still snow on the mountains.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get too distracted with. Again, I could talk about the stunning beauty of Utah for another hour, but let's keep your story moving along, and eventually you leave Utah and you head where?
Yeah, so when I was at East LA Junior College into Utah, I coached in what was the Central Illinois League summer ball back then with Mark Vitamontes and Eddie Ziefert. Ended up meeting Jared Kutnick, who started the organization. He tried to get me out here for years and years, and I was all in on the Division I thing and the glitz and glamour of all of it. Till finally I was like, okay, I need to start making some money. And this life here of finishing up school, going to the office, getting office stuff done, going to the field, working on the field, practice, to run home, grab a bite, grab a shower, and then go work at a bar at night. It wore on me pretty quick. So Jared Kutnick offered me the job 6 years later, 2015. I ended up just packing my truck and moving out to Chicago. 2 years ago now, Jared Kutnick had some life changes. He had a kid, so the opportunity came to kind of take over the organization and own it, and that's where we're at now.
That's cool. So, it's like we talk to some people who are like just starting something, some people who are, a bunch of years into it. And in this case, you're taking over. So I think that'll be interesting to get some perspective on what a transition from one owner to another owner is like. I mean, what's been like? I don't know, just like right out the gate. What's been the most surprising part to you as as a new business owner, a relatively new business owner?
I think the biggest part is you get thrown into the fire, and it's trial by error. You just have to constantly learn, just as we do in baseball. You got to constantly learn the business side of everything. Luckily for me, I got some good people in my corner that I could go to that kind of handle the financial end. I have to be in the know about everything that goes on. But at the end of it, I'm a baseball guy, and my bread and butter is I want to be on the field or in the cages or, taking ground balls with the guys. But at the same time, having that separation in your life of, okay, you got to be present in whatever you're doing. If I'm sitting down with Candace, who kind of runs our logistics and our day-to-day operations, I have to be present when she's walking me through something on the business side and not think about the kid I just got done hitting with and what we have to do tomorrow. You have to be present in every single thing you do, and you have to learn how to kind of adapt to different personalities.
One thing that it makes me sort of curious is like this scenario where it was somebody else's baby that you have now adopted as your own. But now you're in charge. It's your thing. It's right. Now your baby. In the early days, did you bump into situations where somebody says, "Well, that's not how we do it," and you're like, "Well, no, we do now because it's mine now." Did you ever have any of those sort of like back and forths like that?
I'll be honest with you. I really didn't. Jerry Kudnick did a very good job of building this organization into what it is now. At one point, I believe 2018, we were the number one rated PG rated, the number one rated travel in the Midwest. With as many travel teams are popping up, almost like on every block. Everything's kind of been watered down, and guys are kind of separating now. But I really didn't get into that. It was like, hey, this is your thing. This is what you believe in. Let's go. Let's get after it. Let's go do it. And I really enjoyed the competition part of, okay, you're going to give me this full reign on this. I'm full go, instead of kind of tiptoeing around something because you feel uncomfortable. And that's really how I want my guys to feel. Hey, if we're going to teach something, let's sit down. Let's talk about it. I want you to teach me. I got a lot of younger guys that are working for me right now, fresh out of school. So they have new ideas and what they learned from their college experience. Hey, what do you guys do for base running? Let's break some of that down. And we kind of hybrid what I want to do, what they want to do. But at the end of the day, as long as we're on the same page, development wise, we might translate it something different. But as long as we're on the same page, I think everybody's moving forward, including the kids.
Yeah, cool. That's awesome. So you've been over there with full reins now for a few years. Tell me about your teams. How young do you go? How old do you go? And how many at each age group?
So last year we had 9 teams. Last year when I took over, we had 9 teams. We have 15 now. I don't know if I want to go very much bigger. I don't want to get caught up in that side of everything. We started at 12 a year ago. This year we're actually starting at 10. I got a lot of phone calls over the summer saying, "Hey, are you guys having a 10-year-old team or an 11-year-old team?" And I said, no. Matter of fact, I spent about an hour on the phone with a certain dad that was 100% gung-ho on his kid playing travel ball at 10U.
Yeah.
And I said, look, man, I said, here's why I don't do this. One, this now becomes a job for the kids, and the kids aren't allowed to be kids anymore. So, going through, hey, the kid could be burnt out by the time he gets to high school. So we could do kind of a part-time thing. I got so many phone calls that I ended up giving in because these people just wanted to practice. One of the things that we do is we practice a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Our youth schedule we probably play about 40 games in a season. We practice probably 150 days. So the development side of, it's not about the wins and losses. At some point it is, right? But it's not about the wins and losses. It's about development. It's about human development. It's about player development, and kind of get them in that system early. There's some things that we don't have to worry about when they get to 14 or 15 years old, or when they're entering high school and they have to hit the road for a full summer.
Yeah, I always get sort of conflicted with the travel ball starting too young, but it sounds like you've sort of tried to balance it, where
as best as I can, man, as best as I can. I think so. Our 10, 11-year-olds don't start practice until January. I just got done with our youth parent meetings this past weekend, and just explaining to the parents, like, hey, we're gonna get after it. We're like, there's gonna be some stuff that's gonna be hard for you as a parent to see, but at the same time, we're still gonna have fun, and I want kids to be kids. We might have a practice day where we go out, and one day, hey, we might play football for a day. I just want to see how kids compete outside of baseball and outside of pressure. And just learning the kid, learning the human before you try to teach or force the baseball player, I think is one of the biggest things in all of youth sports now.
For sure. The irony being that at 10 or 11 years old, that one day you show up to practice and you guys break out into a wiffle ball game or a flag football game, becomes one of the best memories of the entire season. You know what I mean?
It does.
Like
it does. You just see differences in kids without the pressure of it. Everything has to be a certain way. Like, one of the things I'm doing is we're going to play 5-on-5 basketball, and I just want to see how kids could fail, and they have to move on immediately. They have to communicate in a fast-paced environment. But just things like that we can go back to a kid and say, hey, you missed that shot, but right away you sprinted back to defense. That's how it's got to be in baseball, even though it's a longer, slower game. But to deal with that adversity and fail and be able to accept it and move on, and then later on dissect and learn from it, that's a huge tool that you could have. Because at the end of the day, baseball, you chose a game of failure. So you're going to fail. I want to see the adversity that you go through and the bounce back.
For sure. I hadn't really thought about the parallels in that way before, where, you go down the court in basketball, you miss a shot. You don't have time to sit and mope like you do. You get punched out in baseball, you go sit in the dugout, you might hang your head, you stew on it for a few minutes, and you might take it out, out to the field with you. In basketball, you don't get that. It's like you missed
get moving, man.
You missed the shot, and you got to go D up your guy. You got to move.
You better get moving.
You got to have.
Not only are you sitting and sulking about your failure, but you're also leaving your teammates hanging out to dry.
Now we've seen it. We've seen that dude who, and then a layup goes right by him, right?
Right.
But more times than not on the basketball court, it's like you miss the shot or you turn the ball over, and it's like, hey man, short memory. You got to go the other way because you have another job to do. I think that's a great lesson to give to that baseball player. And sort of at a high level, it's like, man, you need to just erase your memory. Like,
yeah, Rich, I think it's a great lesson for the kid. I think it's a great lesson for coaches.
Ooh, good point.
Because you get to see everything, and you get to see the kid. Hey, if I take kids out to play basketball, they're like, oh, well, Pete's a baseball guy. He doesn't know anything about basketball. And you see a little different act in them. Their walk is a little bit different because they think they're a baller.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Pete doesn't know anything. And it's like, hey, dude, why don't you walk and act like that all the time?
Yeah, with like, confidence.
Right. And nothing should change. You're playing a sport and you're competing regardless, and you're gonna do everything you can to win. But I think it's a valuable lesson for coaches to see also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, hey, man, you got to bring that confidence and fun with you to the baseball field, the same as you brought it to that pickup basketball game. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's cool, man. Like, it's funny. This is sort of reminding me. I don't know if it's related or unrelated, but we had an off day like freshman year. It was like our first off day in like 1,000 days or whatever. It felt like you know how you get into that into that schedule, and somehow spontaneously a wiffle ball game broke out. Not at the baseball field, but just on the ground, on the campus, and it was like 10 of the baseball players, like all of a sudden, just like meet up. And it was like, oh man, like, yeah, let's bring that, like, that childish, fun, loose approach that we have on this wiffle ball game or this basketball game. Let's bring it over to the baseball field.
Yeah.
Oh man.
No, it's a little bit off the wall. Yeah, it is, but I think today the kids that we're dealing with that are stuck in their phone or might have some home issues or girl issues or whatever it might be, just to give them the freedom to say, hey, we're going to compete, but this is going to be fun at the same time.
Yeah.
So a lot of our ideas are kind of off the wall ideas and like kind of a breather of reassurance for the kid that, hey, you're okay, man. You're going to get through this, but you're not going to get through it dwelling on the past. You got to move on.
For sure. Well, listen, I want to keep our conversation moving, especially since I was a little tardy to my own call. I want to hit you with a couple of the questions that I've been asking all the coaches. The first one is sort of a layup, if you will. Maybe not. We'll find out. Is there a book or a website or a movie, just some kind of resource that you recommend, that you find yourself recommending to other coaches?
I think the on the book side, I think the number one book, and this is old school, I think the number one book any coach could get and pass along to their players is Heads Up Baseball by Ken Revisa.
Yeah, man,
I think
you're the second guy to bring that up recently. That's a good one. I think that's the simplest book that puts everything in perspective so easily, and it not only relates to baseball, but it does relate to real life. Yeah.
Your green light and your yellow light and your red light, and the snowball effect of when things are going good, everything's going good. When things are going bad, everything's going bad. And how do you get out of it?
Yeah.
So that's a book that I recommend to all of our players and to every coach, because you can kind of get on the same wavelength as the player and kind of figure out what they're thinking and have that conversation with them.
Very good.
Relentless by Tim Grover.
What's that one? That one doesn't ring a bell. I'm going to look that up. Relentless.
That's it was Kobe and Michael Jordan's trainer that kind of went through the Mamba mentality and how Michael Jordan became MJ. Tim Grover's a very good speaker. That book is very good. I'll be honest with you, I don't read a lot of. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Are there any podcasts in the coaching or sports world that are worth recommending besides the one you're on right now?
Well, number one, I think everybody's got to be an ABCA member.
Okay.
You have access to every presentation dating back to, I believe, 2010.
Wow.
So as far as like X's and O's of baseball, I think that's a no-brainer. I think everybody's got to become an ABCA member, and you have access to anything you want. And it kind of clean things up for you. Maybe it's a new sense of teaching a certain way of pitching or a certain way of picking up a ground ball. But I listen to at least one past presentation a week, and it could be, and I try to mix them up all the time.
That's a really good point. So for like, I think the ABCA membership for a year is like $100, and it comes with a zillion benefits. But that's
right.
That's one benefit that's man, that pays dividends, because there's a zillion present. You're talking about going back over a decade of presentations. That's pretty good.
Right, from the who's who. From
of
the
course.
Who's who of baseball. You got everything from Ozzie Garrido to Ken Revisa to Jay Johnson.
Yeah.
You got high school coaches in there, so I think that's a huge tool for guys to have, and they have access to it right on their phone at any time they want.
Big time. That's awesome.
But I get into a lot of anything that gets your blood flowing, anything that gets you moving. I listen to a lot of Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher.
Yeah,
I listen to a lot of Eric
yeah.
Thomas. Super intense. You could hear the pain in his voice about what he's been through. So I anything that's kind of extremely motivational with some pain in their voice that get the blood moving and kind of get you fired up. Man, I love that stuff.
Very good. Yeah, very, very good. Right on. I'm looking at Relentless here. It subtitled "From Good to Great to Unstoppable." That takes it to another level. I like that. Let's jump ahead here in the interest of time. Again, we kind of talked a little bit about your transition. You weren't necessarily the founder, the original founder of Rake City. So I'm going to ask this question because you've got a little bit of a different perspective here. The question is, what's one piece of advice you'd give someone that's just starting a team or organization or opening a facility? Like, you came at this as jumping in to something that was already started. So I'm curious to get your perspective to, if you had a buddy who was like, hey, I'm about to start something, what do you tell that guy?
I think that's a loaded question with today's sports. I think that, number one, you got to do it for the right reasons. Don't do it to make money. This isn't, any coach, anybody could tell you, you're not going to make a very profitable living coaching a sport. So you have to do it for the right reasons. The number one reason for myself and my organization and my staff is the human development side. You have to be in tune with the kid, baseball player. So an example is, like I tell my guys all the time, let the kids be kids. Boys, I don't know what the difference is between bullying and having fun with a bunch of dudes are these days. But if I could kind of get a group together of kids of, let's say, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, and kind of make fun of them, kind of goof around with them, and if the kid puts his head down, I haven't got him yet. I haven't won that kid yet. I haven't won the human yet. As soon as I could kind of make fun of the kid and everybody's laughing, and the kid can laugh at himself, you got him. Mm-hmm. You got him. That kid's going to listen to everything you say, whether it be in life or in baseball. So to start an organization, you have to do it for the right reasons, and on the top of that list for me is for the kid and for his future, even if it's outside of baseball or outside of sports. You have to send them out to life prepared to deal with failure, to deal with the loaded calendar of a full day. But I think this thing is so much bigger than the sport. As we get them at a younger age, and we get to see them grow up, and we get to become a part of their lives, and then 10 years later, when they're done with you, you get the random text from them and say, "Hey, I'm getting married. You want to come to my wedding?" Like, that's what this thing's about. You're going to get your draft picks and your guys that go off to big schools and and your guys in the big leagues, but the text about like, hey, I just send me a photo of a newborn kid, or them graduating college, or them getting married. That's what this thing's about.
For sure. And when to go back to the very beginning of the conversation when you were talking about your guys from, you know, from the rough neighborhood who are still keeping in touch with you, man, that speaks volumes of, you know, that relationship that you guys created over a short period of time. You know, what was that, 10, 20, 15 years ago or whatever it was. So yeah, that's gotta feel good. All right, talk about loaded questions. I'm going to ask you a loaded question here. What, if I gave you the magic wand, what is one change do you think that could be made to travel ball that would have the biggest positive impact?
I like to see you guys get certified, and I know you could kind of start your own business and start your own team. But for some of these bigger tournaments, I like to kind of like an ABCA, kind of a convention of where guys could get together and talk shop, and kind of go through, and not necessarily a certification, but kind of a training. I think there's so many guys that kind of just start a travel ball team, and they see, hey, I could make some money off of this. And at the end of the day, the development is not really there. I understand the business side. I get all that. But at the end of the day, the business side, we got parents that are paying for their son to be a part of your life. And I take that extremely serious.
Yeah.
So, travel ball versus high school ball or versus youth sports or anything in general, I think there's a lot of time and effort that goes into practice. I would like to see teams practice a lot more versus play games. We catch a lot of heat from that in this area because some other teams play 80 games a season, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to pigeonhole a kid into, well, this is now becoming your life. I want the kid to be a kid. And be able to go out and do other things, have time to do other things. But with that being said, we are going to have practice and we are going to have accountability. And I am going to get you and yell at you and scream at you. But at the same time, I'm going to hug you and I'm going to tell you I love you. I think we need a lot more guys that love their guys, and because they do look up to us. And like I said, that's a big part of what these parents are paying for, to go into the educational part of the development of the kid and of the ball player.
For sure.
It's not about winning trophies, man. I want to win lives.
For sure.
I'd rather win lives than win trophies.
Yeah, you nailed it, man. You nailed it, guys. This is the Rake City over on Twitter and rakecity.org on the internet. Go catch up with Pete outside of Chicago. Pete, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man. Do you have any parting shots? I mean, that last one was pretty much a good mic drop. Is there anything else that that you definitely felt like you needed to touch on before we go?
No, not really. I mean, I just want to there's a lot of people saying that baseball is a dying sport. I'm not a believer in that. There's still kids playing ball. The MLB and what's going on right now doesn't set a very good example of what's going on, but there's still kids playing, and there's still kids that need help, and there's kids that, there was a study done. The number one reason why kids choose to play youth sports, and the number one reason was to have fun. Number two was to be with their friends. Number 10 on that list. Number 10 on that list was to win games.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
But number 3 was to learn a new skill that they could show off later.
Mm-hmm.
So understand what kind of impact you're having and how much, not pressure, but how much is getting put on you to develop that kid, and the relationships that you could. Hey, I'll tell you this: I'll know a lot more personal things about my players before their parents will.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
We spend, my high school guys, we spend all summer on the road. Spend six weeks together on the road, and we have those life talks, and they'll come up to me with their problems. Whether it's a kid, their parents are going through a divorce. Hey, that kid will come over, and it's like, it's the kids are different these days, man. Kids are different these days, and it's okay. It's okay to let out some anger once in a while. You're a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to cry, dude. I had 2 kids crying in my office last week, just trying to dig in. He's like, I've never talked about this before. I've always held this in. So, it's things like that I think not necessarily, we need more of, but I think we got to be more in tune to what's going on outside of the baseball field for what these kids are going through on a daily basis, coming off of COVID, living in their phone.
It's a bigger responsibility than just filling out the lineup card, for sure.
100%.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on today. I want you to hang on 1 second, but I'm gonna stop the recording. Hang on 1 second.
Thank you.
You got it, man. I appreciate you doing this.